Part 1. The Grain of Pride. In the bustling lakeside town of Capernaum, the air was perpetually thick with the scent of dried fish, salt wind, and baking bread. But inside the workshop of Tobias the elder, the world smelled strictly of cedar, olive wood, and sawdust. Here worked Elias. He was young, strong-shouldered, and possessed hands that seemed to speak a language of their own when laid upon a piece of raw timber. Elias was Tobias's apprentice, though in his own mind, he had long surpassed the old man. Tobias worked slowly, his failing eyes squinting at the grain of the wood, constantly murmuring prayers of gratitude to the God of Israel for the materials he provided. Elias, however, worked with a furious, burning ambition. He did not build to serve. He built to be admired. "You force the chisel, Elias," Tobias would say gently, his weathered hand resting on the boy's tense shoulder. "Wood is like the human heart. You cannot force it against its grain without causing a splinter. You must work with what the Creator has given it." Elias would merely brush off the old man's wisdom. "If I strike hard enough, Master Tobias, the wood yields. The Romans do not pay us for patience. They pay us for perfection, and they pay us on time." Elias's pride was his armor against the indignities of living in an occupied land. If he could be the finest carpenter in Galilee, perhaps he would not feel so powerless when the Roman soldiers marched through the streets, their armor clanking like a mockery of peace. Part 2. The Unyielding Yoke. One sweltering afternoon, a commission arrived that tested Elias's arrogance. A wealthy merchant named Jair commissioned a double yoke for his newly acquired, massive oxen. Jair was a hard man who demanded perfection. "It must be flawless," Jair demanded, tossing a heavy pouch of denarii onto the workbench. "If it chafes the beasts, they will not pull. If it breaks, your reputation in Capernaum will shatter with it." Tobias nodded humbly, but Elias stepped forward, his chest puffed. "It will be the finest yoke in all of Judea. I will carve it myself." For a week, Elias isolated himself in the back of the shop. He selected the thickest, hardest piece of oak he could find. He swung his mallet with ferocity, carving and smoothing, driven by a desperate need to prove his superiority. But the wood fought him. It was knotted and stubborn. He chipped his favorite blade. He blistered his palms. Worse, as he tried to bend the wood to the exact curvature needed for the oxen, it cracked. Snap! The sound echoed in the quiet shop like a judge's gavel. Elias stared at the fractured oak, his chest heaving. He threw his mallet across the room, cursing the wood, the heat, and his own hands. Tobias slowly walked in, picking up the discarded mallet. "You are trying to build the yoke by your own strength alone, Elias. A yoke is meant to bind two together to share a burden. Yet you bear your burdens entirely alone. Who is your master, boy? The wood or your pride?" "I have no master but my craft." Elias snapped back, storming out of the workshop into the blinding Galilean sun. Part 3. Rumors of the Nazarene. The streets of Capernaum were unusually crowded. As Elias pushed his way toward the shores of the Sea of Galilee to cool his anger, he heard murmurs rippling through the marketplace. "He is here, the teacher. I saw him heal a blind man in Bethsaida. They say he was a carpenter once, from Nazareth." Elias paused. "A carpenter?" he thought scoffingly. What kind of carpenter abandons his trade to wander the dust in poverty? Curiosity, however, overcame his cynicism. He followed the flow of the crowd until he reached a sloping hillside just outside the town. Thousands of people were gathered, the sick, the poor, the weary, and the curious. Elias stood at the back, his arms crossed over his chest, his jaw set defensively. Down near the water's edge stood a man. He was not dressed in fine robes, nor did he possess the haughty posture of the Pharisees. He looked ordinary, weathered skin, strong hands, the distinct build of a laborer. But when he spoke, the wind seemed to carry his voice directly into the ears of every person present. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," the man, Jesus, said. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Elias's breath hitched. My yoke is easy. The words struck him with the force of a physical blow. He thought of the fractured oak on his workbench, the blisters on his hands, the constant, suffocating pressure he put upon himself to be perfect. This man spoke of a yoke not meant to chafe, not meant to break the spirit, but meant to lighten the load. For the first time in his life, Elias did not feel like a master craftsman. He felt like an exhausted child. Part 4. The Shattered Timber. Despite the profound impact of the Nazarene's words, old habits die hard. Elias returned to the shop the next day, determined to start the yoke again, relying on his own sheer will. He worked late into the night, the oil lamp casting long, dancing shadows against the stone walls. He was exhausted. His eyes were heavy, his focus wavering. As he pushed a heavy adze through the tough grain of a new piece of wood, the tool slipped. Elias cried out in agony. The sharp iron blade had bypassed the wood entirely and bitten deep into his left hand, tearing through flesh and striking the bone. Blood soaked the sawdust, turning it a dark, rusty crimson. Tobias found him collapsed on the floor, clutching his mangled hand. The old man bandaged it tightly, his face pale with worry. You have severed the sinew, Elias, Tobias whispered, tears in his eyes. I am sorry. You will live, but you will not carve again. The words were a death sentence. To Elias, a carpenter who could not build was a man who did not exist. His entire identity, his pride, his future, were wrapped up in his ability to manipulate wood. Now his left hand hung useless and numb, a permanent casualty of his own reckless ambition. Days bled into weeks. Elias sat in the dark corner of the shop, watching Tobias struggle to complete Jair's yoke alone. A profound depression settled over Elias. He refused to eat. He refused to speak. He was broken timber, fit only for the fire. Part 5. Seeking the Master Builder. One morning, Tobias came to Elias with a sense of urgency. He is in the town square. Jesus of Nazareth. They say he is healing the sick today. Elias looked down at his ruined hand. I am not sick, old man. I am broken. There is a difference. You can cure a fever, but you cannot unsplinter shattered wood. A carpenter knows how to restore what is broken, Tobias insisted, pulling Elias to his feet. Come. Reluctantly, Elias followed. The square was a sea of humanity. The desperation in the air was palpable. People were begging, weeping, reaching out just to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. Elias felt small and insignificant. Why would this great prophet care about a proud, foolish apprentice who had injured himself through sheer arrogance? Elias tried to turn back, but the crowd surged, pushing him forward. Suddenly, the chaotic noise seemed to dampen. The sea of people parted slightly. Jesus was standing just a few paces away, finishing a conversation with a Roman centurion. As he turned, his eyes met Elias's. There was no condemnation in those eyes. There was only a deep, profound understanding. It was the look of a master craftsman inspecting a piece of wood, seeing not its flaws, but its potential. Elias, Jesus said. His voice was calm, anchoring Elias in the turbulent crowd. Elias trembled. He knows my name. Step forward, Jesus instructed gently. Part 6. The Carpenter's Grace. Elias stepped into the clearing, cradling his crippled hand against his chest. He fell to his knees in the dust. All of his pride, all of his defenses, crumbled. Lord, Elias choked out, the word feeling foreign yet entirely right on his tongue. I am ruined. I built my life on my own strength, and it has shattered. I am useless. Jesus knelt in the dust beside him. He did not immediately reach for the wounded hand. Instead, he looked at Elias's face. A master builder does not discard a stone because it has a chip, Elias. The stone the builders rejected can become the cornerstone, Jesus said quietly. You have spent your life trying to master the wood, but you have not allowed your own heart to be shaped by the Creator. You have fought the grain. Tears, hot and fast, spilled down Elias's cheeks. I don't know how to yield, he confessed. I only know how to strike. Jesus smiled softly. Give me your hand. Slowly, trembling, Elias extended his left arm. Jesus took the ruined hand in his own. Elias noticed that Jesus's hands were calloused, strong, the hands of a fellow worker. As Jesus's thumbs gently traced the severe scar tissue and the twisted sinews, a sudden, intense warmth radiated through Elias's arm. It wasn't the harsh heat of the sun, but a deep, structural warmth, like sap returning to a dead branch in the spring. Elias gasped as he felt the muscles knitting back together, the bone aligning, the nerves awakening from their deadened slumber. In mere seconds, the pain vanished. Jesus released his hold. Elias flexed his fingers. They moved flawlessly, with perfect strength and agility. The hand was completely whole. The crowd erupted into murmurs of awe, but Elias heard none of it. He was staring at Jesus, completely overwhelmed by grace. You are healed, Jesus said, standing up. Now go back to your bench. But do not build for the applause of men. Build as an act of prayer. Take up my yoke, Elias. Work alongside me. Part 7. The Apprentice's Prayer. Elias returned to the workshop, a changed man. When he walked in, he did not reach for his tools. He fell to his knees beside the workbench, laying his newly healed hands flat against the rough, unfinished oak of Jair's yoke. He closed his eyes and, for the first time in his life, he did not rely on his own intellect to guide his work. He prayed, Master of all creation, I am but an apprentice in your workshop. Forgive my pride, for I have struck against the grain of your will. Guide these hands, that they may no longer build monuments to myself, but instead craft vessels of your grace. Let me take up your yoke, for I know now that true strength is found in surrender. Shape me, Lord, as I shape this timber. Amen. When he opened his eyes, Tobias was standing in the doorway, a quiet smile on his wrinkled face. Are you ready to work, Elias? The old man asked. Yes, master. Elias replied softly. Show me how to follow the grain. Together, the old master and the young apprentice finished the yoke. Elias worked differently now. He was patient. He listened to the wood. He didn't force the chisel, he guided it. He worked with a deep, abiding joy that he had never known before. When Jair the merchant came to collect the yoke, he ran his hands over the smooth, perfectly curved wood. He was speechless. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, flawless, incredibly strong, yet exceptionally smooth so as not to harm the beasts that would wear it. This is extraordinary, Jair muttered, tossing a bag of coins that was double the agreed-upon price. You are truly a master, Elias. Elias looked at the heavy bag of silver, then back at Jair. He gently pushed the extra coins back toward the merchant. Keep your extra silver, Jair. Give it to the poor in the square, Elias said with a serene smile. And I am no master. I am merely an apprentice, learning to build under the guidance of the true carpenter. From that day on, Elias's workshop became known not just for the finest woodwork in Galilee, but for the profound peace that seemed to emanate from the carpenter himself. Every table, every chair, every yoke he carved was a silent testament to the day the Nazarene taught him the true meaning of strength, grace, and the beautiful necessity of surrender.